Hello, everyone. Welcome to another video in the Coaching Mastery series. We are coming to an end of this particular series, and that's because we are starting our certification next week. ECCP is next week. If you've been watching these videos, you've been hearing us talk about it quite a bit. It's a 5-day deep dive certification program. It is stage 2 of the 4 stages of neurotransformational success, which is a 4-part video series that you can see inside of this long coaching mastery playlist. And stage 2 is after stage 1, obviously. And stage 1 is the online program that comes with ECCP. Actually, today is the last day to get them at a discount of $500. The price goes up tomorrow. So you can get them both, and you can join us online next week, or the ticket is good for 2 years. So even if you can't make it next week or whatever reason, if you can't make it next week, I was trying to find another way to say that, you have a ticket that's good for 2 years. We run these about every 6 months or so. Many of you are already in BCC, and so that's your next step. If you're not in BCC, that's fine. You can jump in and get them both at the same time. And it's $24.97 right now. And tomorrow it'll go up. All right. Is my audio, you said my audio is better now? At first it was staticky. Okay. So today we're going to talk about information overwhelm, information overload, which leads to information overwhelm. And before we get into that, if you want to see any of the videos that we've done, I mentioned the Coaching Mastery series. You can see it on YouTube, bit.ly/YouTube replays, or you can see it at Facebook, facebook.com/Coach Sean Smith. Find the playlist of Coaching Mastery. You can watch all these videos. So today, I want to talk about information overload, because it's killing us. I mean, we have so much access to information nowadays, and because of that, I believe we've become addicted in many ways to information. And so many of our platforms, social media platforms, I mean, it's I don't know when it started, but I've heard that we're living in the information age. And I don't know exactly, what that means in terms of, compared to the industrial age and Renaissance and things like that, historical ages. I don't know like where the boundaries are, but I definitely believe that we are in an information age, and information is easier than ever to get. Obviously, we have these cell phones, and we've got the internet, and the world is more connected informationally than ever over the last 30 years. Since the internet became this public part of society. And then really over the last, I'd say 10 years, when social media platforms started to drive so much of our existence. Whereas social media once upon a time was just a way to connect, social media now is like life for so many of us. It's the way I think most people get their news. It's the way most people find information. It's the way most people, I think, spend the majority of their, downtime, or on the toilet, or waiting in traffic, or in the, checkout lines. And so we've become addicted to this informational wealth of existence and experience, right? The problem with that is it's extremely shallow information most of the time. And since we are addicted as a society, I think, to shallow information, then what gets sacrificed? Depth of information, depth of knowledge. I think we've been programmed by all these informational inputs of what to think, that we don't spend time and energy. And a lot of times we're not being taught how to think. We're just swimming in all of this information. And from an evolutionary standpoint, meaning your evolution as a coach, as a leader, as a trainer, your ability to get better and better and better in your work. Information overload is a massive problem because the more addicted to information we are, the less implementation we have. So we get information, right? And then as soon as it fails in some way, as soon as it doesn't give us everything that we want, our intellect, which operates like a computer driven by information. So if we don't have everything that we want in our lives, our intellectual computer goes, oh, we need more information. We need better information. So then we go out and try to get more information. But I don't think anybody is suffering from an information deficit. I think we're suffering from implementation deficit. We don't implement the information that we already have. Therefore, going and getting more information is not going to be the answer. If you want to get better at something, like if you want to get really good at playing the piano, the answer isn't to find as much information as you can in playing the piano, especially when the information doesn't agree with each other. Especially when somebody goes, you should hold your hands this way, and then somebody else goes, you should hold your hands this way, and somebody else goes, you should cross your hands. Somebody else goes, you should play with your toes, right? If you have all this information that's competing about the right way to do it, now you've got another problem. And that is what we're dealing with in the coaching industry. We don't just have a bunch of information. We have a bunch of information with different philosophies. And those different philosophies are competing over what's the right thing to do. That adds a huge piece to this puzzle, because when you aren't getting everything that you want and somebody else with a different piece of information says, oh, it's because you're following the wrong philosophy. You shouldn't be doing Facebook ads. You should be on TikTok, or you shouldn't be on social media at all. You should just be doing belly-to-belly networking, or you shouldn't be doing any of that stuff. You should just be doing calls, or you shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing that. So now it just adds to the overwhelm of what's the right thing to do. And that taps into a deep, deep drive that we have as humans to do the right thing, which is underneath that is driven by the fear of doing the wrong thing because we don't want to be in danger. So we have this deep-seated fear of doing the wrong thing that leads us to being tempted by new information all the time that's telling us there might be a different right thing to actually do. And because of that, we're scattered. And in the informational age, when somebody is scattered, they don't commit to implementing the information because they don't even believe in the information. You don't commit, you haven't committed yet that the information is correct. So why would you commit to the implementation of the information that you don't yet fully believe in? So when we're caught up in this informational overwhelm, we don't implement. We don't implement enough to get good, nor do we implement enough to know what path is actually right for us. In the coaching world, there are literally thousands and thousands of philosophies, thousands of people, thousands of companies out there that are offering different templates, different ideas, different platforms, different philosophies, different methodologies, different certification programs. There's just a sea of different. And that's a huge, huge problem because it restricts our ability to commit. So if you're addicted to more information, you're not able to commit to really any of the information. It's like trying to ride 100 horses at the same time. You can't commit to any of them because you really haven't decided which horse is actually the right one for you. So I want to bring on a guest today. Many of you know her. She's well rooted in our community. And I also want to bring Michelle back on, who you all know if you've been watching these videos, because Danita and Michelle are two of the people that went through our programs back in the day and succeeded pretty quick. Not like overnight success, not, $10,000 the next weekend after they got their certification, but over the year and really 2 years after they got deep dive training, they were really good coaches, like really, really, really good coaches, and then started to command paying clients, and their prices have raised. And I think in the world of coaching, these two people have some of the highest prices and actually getting paid for real coaching. Not that they're in like, $100,000 coaching packages or anything like that, but like really, really top of the echelon coaches and have just droves of clients. And let's be honest, like sometimes we need to just tell the truth of the success that you guys have. And one of the determining factors that we recognized, I mean, I still remember being in the room with the three of us and one other person going, okay, what's the missing piece? What's the missing piece? And the two of you both said, you didn't listen you just had the blinders on and you just did the work that you were trained to do. And I, at that time, just happened to be your teacher. So it's not just like I'm the answer, but part of the answer is you took who was teaching you at the time and you just went all in on it. And you didn't have affairs with other teachers. You weren't consuming all this information to confuse you. And that, I think, is one of the biggest problems that a lot of coaches have, is they've just got too many inputs, and a lot of their inputs are philosophically opposed to each other, meaning they don't agree with each other with what to even do. And then you've got this poor, consumer and the student just going, should I follow this person? Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? Or they get into multiple programs, but the programs have different roots. Right? One program is coming from a hardcore sales perspective. Another program is coming from, emotional IQ perspective, and maybe even afraid of sales. And the programs don't fit together. It feels right. Like I'm into all these things and I got all these, all these inputs. Look I've got a bunch of teachers, and that rarely works for anybody because you're just pulled in so many different directions. Anyway, so I want to turn it over to you specifically, Danita. If there's anything you want to add, I know you've been in the background listening to the conversation. If there's anything you want to add to what I've already said, awesome, or add something new, please do.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Hey, Michelle.
Hi, baby.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I just feel like when I'm listening to the journey of coaching and all of that, my saving grace is I'm not a researcher and I'm not interested. I'm a kinesthetic decision maker, not the best route.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's how I feel about the person. And so in the coaching industry, I literally don't know what other high performing coaches are doing. I've never heard Jack Canfield. I never heard Tony Robbins. I just never heard. And people are like, do you know this person? Do you know that person? I go, nope. I just know Sean Smith and Lisa Nichols, but that's it. I had my blinders on, and I think that was my saving grace, to not get pulled in so many directions and follow my heart and what I thought gave me the biggest transformation as a student, and then just follow that path. No affairs with other teachers. And I remember some calls, I'd be like, Sean, I went on someone else's YouTube. I feel like I said I have a confession, and I would raise my hand. Do you remember that, Sean?
Totally, yeah.
And I
you
go,
would feel bad if you were
yes. Not that I owed you anything, but I felt like I got knocked off the course and I wanted to stay here. And so when I think about that, I just laugh now, because it literally was my saving grace. And I didn't jump out once I got my certificate so quick to make money.
Yeah.
I waited 1.5 years practicing before I really charged $50 for my first 1-hour client. I didn't ask for it. She offered. And she was my first client. And there was an energetic shift for me that, oh, now I can get paid for what I do. And I went on a exploratory for every human, every nationality around the globe to coach them. Australia, Ireland, South Africa, everywhere, so that I know I can help a human, not just a particular niche. And I needed to prove that to myself. So my blinders were on. They're still on. They're still on, you guys. So it was my saving grace. I'm not an informational junkie. I can go into overwhelm and completely shut down. I follow who in my heart I trust. And that goes for everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I so appreciate you saying that. And, just to highlight, it's not me, Sean. It's not anybody in particular. Like, these are not philosophical concepts that we're bringing to you. What we're looking at is what causes people to implement. And what causes people to implement is a commitment to what they're implementing. And for almost everybody, more inputs means less commitment. I mean, it's just the nature. And I didn't intend to take this into a relationship scenario or analogy, but if you got 5 girlfriends or you got 10 boyfriends, are you really committed to any of them? Right. And it's all about implementation. So if you understand, I'm talking to everybody right now, if you understand that in order to get good, you have to implement, now the question is, what prevents you from implementing? That's the problem. Whatever prevents you from implementing. Now, that doesn't mean that you only need to follow one person. But I don't think you should be following more than 3. Just because, and trying to actually implement more than 3, that's going to be virtually impossible. Right. Unless and until you're solid in what you're doing and you know exactly the compartments that you need support with. So then you could have a coach that's helping you in YouTube, let's say, or you can have a coach that's helping you in marketing or in your personal life, or you can have somebody that's helping you with different areas of your business or of your life. But that takes a while to get there. And so what we see virtually all the time is coaches who don't have the certainty in themselves. I love what you shared, Danita. I know, Michelle, you're the same way. You guys both fell deeply into certainty with the work. And then when you started charging, your prices increased a lot faster than most coaches who try to come out of the gate charging high ticket.
Sure.
You got past their high ticket, but you did it quote unquote slowly. It depends on what kind of time frame we're looking at, because there are a lot of people that got certified the same time, literally the same time you guys did, whether it was even in the same classroom, and they're still on this pace. And I'm not trying to be judgmental or be dismissive, but the people that tried to run out of the gate sprinting are exhausted now, and they're sitting on the road, and some of them have given up. And so what you all have to ask yourselves is, what's going to help you implement in order for you to get better? And for almost all humans right now, that's going to be removal of information, removal of distraction, so that you can actually implement with what you have. It's the only way you're going to get better. Michelle, what do you want to add from your, I see you physically activated over there.
You could leave. I think Danita and I could hang out here and talk about this for like 4 or 5 hours.
He left.
Oh my God, it's a mess.
That's your friend.
Yeah. So what you said, Danita, that I love so much is that, and this is true for me, is that you followed the thing that gave you the biggest transformation, right? At least that's what I heard, right? You followed the thing that you had the experience with, and I did the same thing, right? I knew the thing that really truly worked for me, and that's where I picked. And I've never thought about it the way you languaged it, but I love what you said about being a kinesthetic decision maker, right? Like I'm a big feeler, right? If anybody knows me knows that's true. And it really was about, for me, it was about the place that I felt good. And some of this came honestly from some of my programming that wasn't necessarily healthy. But the reality is I was just too dumb to doubt, right? Like it genuinely was like, okay, so here's this person that is doing the thing that I want to be doing. Maybe they know something I don't know. And I, for me personally, a lot of that did come from a place of not having a lot of self-trust, right? Not actually believing that. So that did work for me early on. I had to build the self-trust. But early on, it was just like, listen, this person is talking about something that they know about that I don't know about. Let me just stop. Let me not research 9 million things. I'm with you. Until I got into more of the business side of things, I didn't know who anybody else was. I didn't know who coaches were. I'm like, who is that? I was Googling people left and right when somebody would talk about somebody, because I didn't know who they were. If Sean didn't introduce them, and that's not like Sean said this, that's not like, oh, he's the thing, he's the answer. No, it's just, I chose a teacher. And so if the teacher didn't bring in the concept, didn't bring in another teacher, didn't bring in somebody that I knew was connected to them, I didn't go out and search for that. And then I just did the thing that they said to do. I just trusted in the process. And again, some of this did come from my personal, like, trauma and the way that adapted. But I genuinely wanted to do what was being told to me, because, and Sean alluded to this early, I just wasn't somebody who was taught how to think, like growing up, right? I was always taught what to think and what the right answer is. And so I actually used that to my advantage. And just, if he said to do secret interviews, I did them. Right? If it was like, hey, you need this certainty, I was like, okay, I must need the certainty, right? Very, very similar to you. And I remember actually talking to you about the pricing, and I charged the same thing, because I was like, okay, Danita was ahead of me in the path, right? So you were somebody who was a mentor to me and who was further along on the path for me. So I was like, what are you charging? Okay, $50. I'm too dumb to doubt. Let me do what Danita's doing. So that's what I did early on. Like that philosophy helped me out so much. And really, it's the more that we can eliminate the variety of inputs, pick somebody. If it's us, great. If it's not us, great. Just pick one person, one teacher, so that you can go all in on what they're teaching and really give it that effort to know, okay, this isn't aligning with me, right? Or this isn't resonating with me, or this isn't working, and then pick someone else. One of my actually favorite concepts that Lisa talks about is when we have like a bunch of ideas, right? And a lot of us are all trying to do them all at the same time, like they're lined up left to right. And really what is so helpful is just to put them in order front to back. Right? It doesn't mean that you don't go to another training or follow another teacher, but only one at a time, because the reality is, good as we think we are, we just can't be consuming multiple inputs of information simultaneously and expect ourselves to take any kind of action. And then through that process, right, we learn what we stand in, what we stand for, and then we can add more into the mix.
Yeah, it's such a huge point. And I think that it's about getting it right the first time. And I think that it's hard as humans to give ourselves permission to try. Mm-hmm. And that's all I did. Is I tried. I threw a lot of money at it, but I knew I had to get the certification for what I was doing. I had to borrow the money. And so this was the beginning of my career. And so I knew the certification couldn't give me the certainty, but then I poured in 90 hours of practice without charging. And then I also covered myself, because I think it's disrespectful for individuals to put pressure on a brand new business to produce income.
Right.
And so what I did is I covered myself under different companies, under Sean's company, where he would do the marketing and then feed me the clients, or motivating the masses. They would feed me that. I wasn't making as much,
Right.
but I stayed in that space for 3 years.
Yeah.
To build that certainty to see, okay, I can handle anybody around the world and I can help humans now. So it doesn't matter what age, to what nationality, it didn't matter for me. I wanted to prove to myself and gather evidence that I could do it.
Right.
And I think the implementation part is we want to implement right. And you can't implement right until you implement and then decide what to tweak.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference. And my advice is stop buying. Stop buying the next microwave solution. Don't waste your money. Just implement what you have and try.
Yeah.
It's a big one. Yeah, it's a Hey Sean, welcome back.
Hi. So what I want to add to what you guys are both sharing is, I mean, I love the fact that you coach for free for a long time, and then you charge $50. And then Michelle followed Danita, who charged $50. And now the two of you are in a situation where you don't just take on clients. Like anybody that could pay you, they could have thousands of dollars for you.
Right.
And you're in such a place of business stability and certainty in coaching that you're not going to say yes to anybody who will pay. And you're going to say no when things don't align for you. And the reason that's so critical to understand is because that's a level of certainty and experience and success and money coming in and high ticket prices that most people are trying to get to. They're just not willing to go through the growth phase to get there. And you guys will stay there for the rest of your lives, for the rest of your career. Like once you hit that place, now you just operate in a different way. And most people will never get there. They'll never cross that line because they're just trying to do it too fast. And then get caught up in the, in the cycle of, I need more information, I need somebody better, and all this stuff. And it's what we're inviting people into is themselves. I think that's what is so scary for a lot of people, even if you don't realize that it's scary. Inviting people into getting really good. That's the invitation. At some point, you will either land there or you'll quit. There are no other options unless let me put a caveat on that. If you want to do like deep coaching, like where you're in the mix with somebody and really helping them try to change their life. If you want to do surface level coaching, that totally fine. You want to help people save money and all that kind of stuff, totally fine. Build Amazon stores, great. Then all the things we're talking about are not really relevant.
Sure.
Because now you just need to understand the information and you really truly are selling the information. But information doesn't transform people's lives. Only implementation does. So if you want to play that game, you have to get good. That's the only way, is at some point you have to get good. What saddens me is that a lot of people have put all of their trust and confidence and certainty in the information. And to your point, Danita, keep buying program after program after program, but all those programs are in information focus. And then when they get to the point where, okay, now I know that I need to get good, they have no money left, or they have no trust left. They don't trust themselves left because they don't trust themselves anymore because they've let themselves down, or they feel like the programs have let themselves down. And we're just telling you what we've seen. I want to highlight what Michelle says. If it's not me, great. If it's not us, great. But pick somebody who you're going to implement with. If you're not implementing, you're not growing. It's just as simple as that. So whatever is stopping you from implementing needs to be removed. Whatever will help you implement needs to be focused on. That's what you put your effort into. That's what you put your investment into. That's what you put your time into. And information is not it, or virtually all of us. So
And I think in this transformational coaching world, we're trying to automate too much. And as a result, we're losing the human connection.
Mm.
And so, and I'm not saying marketing funnels and sales funnels don't work. I personally don't use them because I want to hear the heart of the human versus the information in the email address.
Mm-hmm.
And so all my clients, whether they find me on Google or wherever, they want that human touch.
Sure.
I think it's being, with this information society, it's being dismissed rapidly, and where they're feeling more disconnected. And on LinkedIn, I get 1,000. Do you want to make $100,000 in 6 months? Like, I'm like, delete, 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 delete. It's just not my style. And figure out your jam, figure out your style, figure out how you can connect with humans. And I think that's one of the reasons my conversion rates are like 90 to 95%, because I want to hear the heart of the person, not the email or the phone number, just blast out emails. And I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just a different approach. And so if you can bring some human aspect into your business, I think in this type of business of transformation would be huge. The world is thirsty for it.
I love that you said that. And I know you've got to run sometime soon. So whenever you have to run, totally fine. What I love is the two of you were actually like scared of internet marketing. I know, Danita, you just put up a website recently. Michelle technically like has one, a blog, but it's neither one of you use technology to get clients.
Mm-mm. No.
And you do it more so now, but you know, because of exposure on social media and stuff like that. But that's not the way either of you built your businesses. It's not the way you were getting clients. You know, and you kind of mentioned, Michelle, like your, maybe you didn't use the word deficit, but like your insecurities and, you know, just follow the leader programming actually helped you out in this regard, because you just did, you know, what you saw other people doing that you wanted. And for both of you, your technophobia actually helped you stay connected to what you just said, Danita.
Yep.
You know humans. And when you know people and you understand transformation, then you can add technology to increase exposure. Then you can use it to pull people into conversations. You can use it, but it's not a replacement. And I think a lot of people are using it as a replacement or using it as overcompensation for not really understanding who they are and not really understanding the people on the other side of the communication. So even if you send an email out, you know, we send emails all the time to tens of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just tens of thousands of individuals. There's a single person opening that email. And we try to do everything we can to speak to the single person opening the email, not everybody in general. So both of your phobias actually helped you stay committed to implementation. And
yeah, I didn't have a website for 5 years, friends.
Mm-hmm.
5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't want to create one just to create one. I wanted it to represent my essence and my language and my Danita-isms and all of that. And so I didn't just want to have one. And then also when I launched it, I had like, I was sweating and I couldn't even look right. I just didn't even know what to do, because I thought the world was going to start flooding in, and that nothing like that happened.
Right.
No one cared, but now they have a place to look for me.
Right.
Yeah. I love what Anthony just said. He's like, there's an app for everything.
Uh-huh.
Or we try to find an app for everything, but there is no app for confidence and certainty at a deep level. There's no app for courage. There's no app for leadership. There's no app for connection, for rapport. Those are not appable. Those are not technologically avoidable, right? You can't avoid that stuff with technology.
Right.
Once you get to a certain place of business foundation, you can add technology to increase everything.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And if you want to really fundamentally change people's lives, you got to understand the deep work, and you've got to have certainty in yourself. So I want to address.
Before you do, I just want to say what Danita, what you just said. I want to highlight this because it matters so much. Is that so many of us out there, because of all the information, because of all the programs that we're taking that are telling us that we have to have a website, we have to have all the funnels, we have to have all the things, we're doing that first. And what I love about what you said, and it's true for me, it's like it's a very similar truth for me as well, is you said that you hesitated because you wanted it to represent your essence. You knew who you were. You did that first. And then we're like, how do I bring this technology and have it mesh with me and represent me so that when people see this technological thing, they feel the way that we feel when we're in your presence, versus how so many of us do it the other way, where we're trying to use those things. Sean used the word overcompensate for the lack of knowing who we are. It's huge. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's
not right or wrong, right? It's not, you don't need to do websites. That's not, we have a web, the company has a website, Danita has a website. Like, that's not the thing. It's just the order. It's the order in which we're doing them. You know who you are, and then you bring these other things in to highlight, to amplify, to expose, to scale who you are, versus bringing all of those things in to build a wall that blocks who you are from those people.
Yeah, and the overcompensation piece, I think, is really critical.
Yeah.
It's there are no pieces that are wrong, but a marketing template is not going to give you certainty.
Right.
A marketing template can amplify certainty. Absolutely.
Sure.
But it's not going to give it to you. It's not a replacement. It's like money. Money can't give you happiness. It can amplify your abilities to move in the world. Marketing and sales and any kind of automated, scaling mechanisms can amplify, but they can't create or replace. That's the big difference that we're talking about when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
So let me talk about, Gregor, you've mentioned a couple things here, and I want to get to those. Danita, do you have to run? Is there any final things that you want to share before we let you go here?
Find your person. And I've had people come to me and say, I'm about to do this $17,000 coaching program, and I want to see where you got certified. I go, hold up, let me save you quite a few $1,000s, like 75% off. How about that? And I just sent them to Coach Sean Smith. I just say, I'm a little biased. I don't follow many people, but if you follow the recipe, and you're patient friends, then you will get results. And I think and figure out how you're going to keep your mortgage and all that. If you're a brand new coach, figure that piece out so that you can stay creative and not the sense of desperation in your business. Because I think that's why, I don't know, some crazy statistics like 95% of life coaches fail in the first 5 years. I never thought that I'd be here in this position. And yeah, I was patient, just like Michelle. I was patient, I listened, and I implemented. And then here we are. So thank you guys for having me. Sean, Michelle, you guys are doing great things in the world. Keep it up. I'm always a fan, 1000%, hands down. And my blinders are still on, friends, by choice. I don't want confusion. And I want to stay in the work. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for saying yes. Thank you for everything you do and who you are as well. You've just created so much transformation in so many people in the world. So thank you, Danita. What Danita just said is so critical. It's just confusion.
Yep.
It's the increase of confusion never helps. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah.
Now, if there's somebody out there that can learn from 10 different inputs and implement all of them, then this whole video has not been talking to you. And you're not an example of most people. Most people cannot ride more than one horse. So that's the essence of what we're talking about. We're not necessarily saying you have to have only one teacher, and certainly not saying that we need to be that teacher, but you have to implement. That's the key. Anything that prevents you from implementing, there's a problem, and that problem must be removed. If you don't remove the problem, even adding more solutions on top of the problem won't help, because the problem hasn't been removed. So what we see in the industry, and this is, I want to address some of your comments, Gregor. You're asking for examples, and I appreciate that. The examples are everybody else, really. I'm certainly not going to name names. I would never do that. I would never, go, okay, this person and this person and this person and this person. I would absolutely not ever do that. What you have are examples in Danita and Michelle and a lot of the people that we've brought on who have implemented. That's the key. And staying committed and implemented. You mentioned like the extrapolation of this into parenting or having 5 pets or something like that. That's not the concept that we're talking about here. It's, you can manage different, like multiple things in terms of having a bunch of pets or having a bunch of kids and so forth. However, I would say if you don't know how to parent and you're learning from 15 different parenting sources and you don't commit to any of the parenting, and one day you smack your child and the other day you put them in timeout and the other day you just let them go, go on their own and figure out life on their own, then this concept absolutely applies, because you haven't committed to a philosophy. And that philosophy needs to be implemented. Now, parenting and taking care of pets is not the same thing. It's not an apples to apples comparison in terms of getting better in a skill like coaching. So the evolutionary process requires implementation. That's the main point. Nobody could argue that. Nobody could argue that anybody could get better and better and better at a skill without implementing. So if we all can agree on that, then the question is, what leads to implementation? And anything that distracts from implementation will slow the process. So Danita said, be patient, but not necessarily time on the calendar, because being patient, the way that she talked about and the way that you talked about, Michelle, actually speeds up the process.
Sure.
Being committed and focused actually increases the evolution. It increases the growth. Yeah. So our whole point in this is that the people, by the way, Lisa Nichols, you brought up Lisa, or Danita brought up Lisa. You mentioned Lisa. Lisa Nichols is somebody that we all, she's a mentor to all of us. She said the same thing. She would say the same thing. She got really, really good at one thing and just went all in on that thing. And then once there was a lot of foundational certainty there, then started branching out. Jack Canfield, same thing. Tony Robbins, same thing. Like, if you look into the origin stories of a lot of the people that we now look at and go, but look at Tony Robbins does relationships and business mastery and coaching and all these other things. Yeah, now.
Right.
Not when you didn't hear about him.
Right.
Not before he was who you now know. Same thing for Jack Canfield. He was focused on self-esteem for teachers. That's it. For a long time. Before anybody knew about him, he was putting in his work and he was getting really, really good. Same thing with Lisa Nichols. She was doing her work with teens for years and years and years and years. So what's interesting is the examples that a lot of us look at as having all of these, whether it's technology or all the multiple websites or all the different niches and all that stuff, once upon a time they didn't.
Right.
So you've got to find somebody or something that can help you implement from where you are right now.
Right.
Because really, the only step that matters is your next one. And you're not going to grow, especially in your abilities as a coach and then all that entrepreneurship means, you're not going to grow without implementing and learning about yourself and like you can't learn to swim without getting wet. You just can't do that. So that's the main point. And what we see because of technology. Now, when we do get into conversations with a lot of people and we ask them, why are they frustrated? So often the answer is, because I don't know if I should do this or if I should do this or if I should do this. And it's like the philosophy of the day. What's the new philosophy today that you're going to follow?
Right.
And if you just keep shifting philosophies because what you're trying isn't working and you're not identifying the actual issue,
right,
then a new philosophy won't solve that problem, because the deficit isn't that you don't have a philosophy. The deficit is that you're not committed to implementation. So that's what we've seen all across the span of this industry of personal development in general, but coaching specifically. And it's crushing people. It's crushing people. So that's the evidence specifically that you were asking for. The evidence is Danita said 95% of coaches fail. There's no way to tell because we don't know the coaches that are taking online programs and trying to coach and never, it's not like they register as a business and we have tracking. But for all the people that do track, or, for all the people that do register a business, 95% of businesses fail inside of the first 5 years anyway, across the board.
right.
So we could say that coaching is probably one of those businesses. There's nothing magical about coaching that makes people, buck the trends of business. The difference is in coaching, you are the product. That's one of the huge differences. And when you are the product, it brings all of the insecurities and all the doubts and all the internal stuff in the mix in a way that normal businesses don't have. You don't have personal insufficiency in the product itself, right? If you're going to sell mops or you're going to sell financial information or you're going to sell houses, you don't have to believe in the value of the product from a personal standpoint, right? You got to believe in the value of the product, but the product isn't you, so it doesn't bring up all your personal insecurities. That's one of the things that makes coaching unique. Not that it's the only industry, but it is what makes coaching so difficult for so many people, is because they never get over that hurdle of actually believing in the product. The reason is they don't implement enough. The reason is they're too confused. The reason is they got too many informational inputs. That's been my experience throughout the years. And if any of you disagree with that because your story is different, then please let me know. Like, I'm not here to try to make anybody wrong. I've just never heard of it. I've never heard of it. And if you have found a way, anybody, I'm not talking to anybody specifically right now, but if any of you have found a way to ride 3, 4, 5 horses, especially when you're, relatively new as a coach, let me know, because I want to study you. I don't want to argue with you. I want to study you. I want to know, how do you do that? Because I've not seen it happen. So this isn't a right or wrong conversation. We're certainly not trying to shame anybody. We're just saying most people need to unplug from the things that are confusing them in order to commit to implementation. And if you don't, it's going to be really, really hard to get good.
And it goes for your clients as well, right? Like you said, Sean, this is a human conversation, right? Like when you mentioned it with businesses, right? You just said it's not applicable to just the coaching industry. It's business in general. This is not just for coaches. This is for our clients as well.
Right.
Right. And we talked about this, I believe, during the mini series we did on how to change a life. But this is the same system conversation that we've had in the past, right? And when we see the systems or see the symptoms of, somebody saying no to our coaching package, or us not having enough leads, or us not having enough clients, or the things that we maybe don't like about our business, then that's where we get, I believe, that's where it's easy. I'll own this for myself. For me to get in the cycle of searching more information versus what I know that we believe in, and I've seen happen time and time again with my own self and with other coaches, is that when we look at like the actual implementation system, like what's our implementation philosophy, then it kind of has the ability to bypass all of the information cravings that we have when we're not seeing the result that we want, when we're not experiencing whatever it is, the finances, the time management, any external symptom. It's so easy for us to chase the information. And what at least my desire inside of this conversation is for anybody that's watching. And I think it was Anthony, you said, like, and here I am, right, watching another video, right, on more information. It's, for me, it's less about, what Danita said of like, don't buy another program or don't hire another coach or anything like that. It's what's that program doing? And if it is just information, maybe, and this is an individual check-in, pause on that and see if that actually is where you're at. For me, what I needed was support to implement. What I needed is, oh my gosh, I have all this information. I need to have the support, the community, the individual support, the embodiment training that was going to help me with actually implementing, not just giving me more knowledge with no support to be able to implement. So my invitation,
Right.
if you are looking at those things, is not necessarily shut it all down, right? We don't want to say no to everything, but look at, is it actually going to give you the support that you need to take the actions? Because the action piece, that's where all of our answers and really where the actual information that we're craving is going to come from.
That's what it all comes down to, is, are you taking action? And what we know is that most coaches who don't take action are not taking action because they don't believe in their coaching. That's why they're not taking action.
Right.
And then more information is not going to give them that, the template of the month is not going to give you belief in yourself. It's just, that's not the way it works. So, it doesn't matter if you have a gym membership. Do you go? It doesn't matter. You got a bunch of books. Have you read them? Like, that's just a hard truth of humanity that we all share in. And I'm the one, like, I'm not talking down to anybody. I'm asking myself those same questions, because having access to something doesn't matter. It's, are you implementing? And in this world, you got to implement deep, not shallow and wide. That's a huge distinction.
Yeah.
If you want the certainty that is required to achieve the goals that most people have.
Right.
Like, most people have goals in this industry that require certainty that they never get.
Yeah.
That's why I think so many people struggle. Said all with love and advocacy. Everything we've done in this call, especially, is said with love and advocacy. We're going to wrap it up here, although I think Anthony would stick around for a while. I appreciate your comments, Anthony. He's the one that said earlier, like, and here I am watching more information.
Right.
And it's not just more information, but to your point, it's, what's the information designed to do, and is it aligned, and all of that stuff. So we hope this has been a valuable conversation for you all. We're open to all your comments, especially the ones that don't agree, with the concepts and so forth. So we appreciate the engagement of all of you, Gregor, Anthony, and Chad. I see you guys commenting, even if we didn't put you up on the screen. We appreciate your comments. Sarah, thank you. So with that, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. We will talk to you another time.
Take care, everyone.